Just gonna introduce.
Preparedness information. My name is Nate Armstrong. I'm the Deputy Chief for CAL FIRE that oversees the wildland firefighting mission in both San Mateo and Santa Cruz counties. So I'll be hosting this evening's discussion, and then I'll help facilitate some questions and answers with any time that we have remaining after the presentation. Regarding the questions and answers, you can type your questions in during the presentation by using the little Q&A function on the bottom of your screen, but nothing will actually be answered real time during the presentation. It won't be answered until the end. So you'll need to be somewhat specific in what you're asking about rather than what did that just mean or something like that. So also the topic of this discussion is wildfire preparedness. And we want to respect the time of the people that showed up this evening seeking information on preparedness and what they can do to be ready. So we'll be focusing our efforts on answering questions about preparedness and how you can be ready and safe. I would like to introduce our presenters and then just a little bit more information before we get going. So our primary presenter this evening will be David Cosgrave. Go ahead and give a wave, David.
Hello.
Beautiful. Chief Cosgrave is a longtime resident and professional firefighter in San Mateo County. He's CAL FIRE's division chief that oversees the day-to-day operations of CAL FIRE's cooperative fire protection agreements with San Mateo County Fire and Coastside Fire Protection District. One of Chief Cosgrave's ongoing projects has been the oversight of the Coastal Community Emergency Response Team, or CERT, in San Mateo County, so he's pretty well versed in what he'll be discussing with you all this evening. Our second presenter this evening is Ian Larkin. And Chief Larkin is also, he's a lifelong Santa Cruz County resident, and he oversees all administration and operations for CAL FIRE in both San Mateo and Santa Cruz counties. So Chief Larkin has been a major driving force in moving toward the Zone Haven evacuation management platform and will be providing his expertise in that area this evening. If I can just get to sharing my screen with you all here. Hopefully you all should be looking at a PowerPoint slide right now and no longer just staring at my face. It should say Ready, Set, Go on the top. And I want to take just a brief moment to clear up a little bit of confusion that seems to have arisen out of the series of virtual meetings and webinars that we've been conducting. So the San Mateo Santa Cruz unit of CAL FIRE encompasses both San Mateo and Santa Cruz counties. And while the geographical locations may be different, our mission is the same in both counties, and much of our staff reaches out across both counties, like Chief Cosgrave that's joining us in Santa Cruz County tonight from San Mateo County. So while we market information in specific areas sometimes, some of that information reaches across county lines, and we've been trying to get our message out through all media possible, but sometimes those miss the mark just a little bit. So we've been trying to offer all of our material in both counties, which I think is where some of the confusion has come through. So if you go back to March 15th and 16th, here in Santa Cruz County, we hosted a couple webinars focused on the Bonnie Doon and North Santa Cruz County coast areas, and then one kind of focused on the San Lorenzo Valley. And that was the CZU August Lightning Fire Summary and Lessons Learned. Over the next couple weeks, on April 6th in San Mateo County, we hosted a webinar that was aimed at Ready, Set, Go, wildfire preparedness, being ready when that fire comes to you. A couple weeks later, we did, on the 20th, we had a presentation on home hardening in defensible space. And then finally, just a couple weeks ago, we had another presentation on the CZU August Lightning Fire Summary and Lessons Learned, and that was hosted in San Mateo County. That's the same presentation that we did in March here in Santa Cruz County. There are some little tweaks that we kind of tailored to have the message towards San Mateo County, but by and large, it's the same presentation. Tonight, we'll be having the Ready, Set, Go presentation. That's the same one that we had in San Mateo on April 6th. And then in 2 weeks from tonight, we'll be having the home hardening in defensible space presentation that was previously held in San Mateo County. So in all of these, the message is the same, the information we're trying to get out is the same. There's just little kind of tweaks that are county specific. So if you missed any of those, then you can find them on Facebook or our YouTube channel. Just search CAL FIRE CZU in either of those platforms, and it should get you to where you want to be. So if I can unshare here, I will get us turned over to Chief Cosgrave, and he will get us moving through the bulk of the evening. Chief Cosgrave.
Thank you for that. Now I got to figure out how to share my screen though. So let's see what we go with here. Let's play from the start. You've already saw that one. Assuming my volume is good and all that. Thank you for that introduction. Yes, I'm 31 years in the fire service here in San Mateo County, lifelong resident of San Mateo County. And one of my passions in the fire service is getting the community ready for helping themselves, because putting tools in the toolbox is what everyone needs to deal with life lessons and things like that. And a lot of these skills that I learned when I started teaching preparedness to the CERT groups and all that, I had to back up and point out that everyone else doesn't have a lifelong career doing these things. So, breaking it down into steps. So we're going to give you some simple steps, but everything we talk about today is about you doing things and preparing for it. So that's what we're focused on today. And we're going to go over the Ready, Set, Go platform that's out there. And next week, or not next week, but on May 24th, we'll be doing more of the ready portion of it. So we're going to have two experts from the John DeLong from South Skyline Fire Safe Council and Ed Hayes from the Fire Safe Council in Santa Cruz County. So people nearer to your hearts probably. On the 24th at 6 o'clock. They're going to go through a lot of the first part of this presentation that I'm really going to skip over. So I'll give you a gist of it to set up the set and go portion, but the nuts and bolts and all the real gems will come from that webinar. I'll just go over an overview and prepare you for that, and we'll go from there. Okay, so how did Ready, Set, Go, or RSG, because we have to abbreviate everything, how did that get started? In Australia, they have series of wildland fires. So they had a program going where they wanted to have people leave early or stay and defend. So the stay and defend program had to do with defensible space and hardening their homes. They trained the ranchers and the people out there to be able to put firebrands and embers out as they landed on their ranches or near their homes to put them out. Um, they found during evacuations and these large brush fires, or bush fires as they call them, they were having injuries and fatalities. So they tried letting people stay and defend. Unfortunately, in what they called a Black Saturday firestorm, 173 people died. What happened was they had, several weeks of elevated temperatures, 105 to 115 degrees. They had over 400 fires going at one time. And they had, the most critical thing is they had 60-mile-an-hour winds that just blew the embers and the fire too fast for people to defend on themselves. So what we're going to do in the American version is we're focused on hardening your home, putting defensible space in. We want to do that in advance. So everything they're going to teach you next week, we want that in advance so that your home will have a chance of surviving without you there. We want your home to be able to protect itself, and we want you out of the area. So we're going to focus on early evacuation. That's the American version of Ready, Set, Go. Okay, so I just told you what it is. There's four portions of it: the defensible space and the home hardening. I added the prevention right there on the handle because I got a little extra time tonight, because we're going to do the lion's share next in 2 weeks to teach you the home hardening and defensible space. We're going to talk about emergency preparedness and early evacuation. Okay, right here with the ready. So defensible space, that means the area around your home, right? Getting an area that your home is protected from heat and direct impingement of flame. So that's that portion of it. Home hardening refers to what you can do to protect your home from having the embers enter it and have building materials that are resistant to catching fire. So the defensible space is the space you have, and the hardening of your home is the materials and things you do to keep it from entering there. You'll probably have seen this logo on almost every CAL FIRE pamphlet we put out. Puts things into defensible space zones. You got zone 1 there, which is the first 30 feet by your home, and zone 2 is 100 feet out. So these are different buffers and different levels you want to create. Again, 2 weeks from now, they'll go into the nuts and bolts of that. One of the things that's part of the CAL FIRE program is defensible space inspections. They come from the Public Resource Code, or PRC, and the California Code of Regulations, and where they're used in the state responsibility areas. This is something we can go out and inspect properties with and give to the owners. One thing most people don't understand is it's not to protect the homeowner, it's to protect the wildland. So we can't regulate what you do inside your home and your own preparedness, but they can get involved trying to protect the wildland and the forest from you. So these are in place to try to protect the general public and the forest from your activities. Okay, so fire tends to go with the wind, tends to go uphill and follow the fuel. So there's certain things you're not going to be able to change. We can't change the weather or the winds. You're pretty much not going to change the topography you live on. But the fuel, you can interrupt the fuel beds. So they'll talk about minimum clearance of your vegetation, and it's all predicated on the amount of slope you have and what direction the fire winds would come from in your area. You may have to do adjustments for. We're going to focus on laddering of fuels, so you have clearance underneath the trees, so that we want a fire, if it comes through, we want it to go through, pick up all those minimum leaves and all those things that are on the ground, not put out a lot of heat. But we don't want it to do is that middle picture there, where it goes from the grass to the shrubberies to the trees up into the crown of the trees. That's the danger zone. We want to do everything we can to interrupt that. So we'll give you tips on that. Again, with our home hardening, it's the construction materials your home's made with. We want to make sure that there's not an entry point that those embers can get into your house. You see there's a ventilation or vents up on top of the roof. There's eaves, there's gutters, all those places you can imagine that an ember could land. The roofing materials, when I selected my home, it was in a flatter area, in a residential area. It was a stucco building, but it was one of two of the last shake roofs on the block. It became the last shake roof on the block when the other one caught on fire. So I changed my roof, and you see that's a concrete roof there, or composite roof, and I put conventional shingles on mine as far as the roofing materials. So that's something that was easy to do, and it was time to do. So that's one of the things you can do is focus on the materials. If you don't have all the materials that they're going to talk about, you start in the most critical spots and what you can afford. The vents in your house, you don't want the embers to enter in through broken screens. So they're going to talk to you about the mesh. Unfortunately, we can't just close off your house, right? Your house is still going to need ventilation in the crawl space in the attics, but we want to make sure it's only air that gets in there. And your eaves and the overhangs, all these places that you can protect from things accumulating. And then those gutters, you want to cover them so organic material doesn't build up there. Okay, dual pane windows. If a fire was to burn by your house and it was all protected, one of the things that could happen if you don't have dual pane windows of good quality, if you have lightweight draperies or anything inside of the house, the radiant heat could catch them on fire. So they're going to talk about having heavier shutters or just removing those if there's a fire, and having dual pane windows, because the dual pane has a section of insulation in between them. The air gap helps protect that radiant heat from coming into your home. Okay, and then there's all kinds of material listings. You can look at the building material listings online and get different type of fire ratings for whatever kind of project you're working on your home. Again, the Fire Safe Council experts in 2 weeks will have all that there. So it's a combination of both the defensible space of clearing the vegetation and preparing your home that's going to give your house a chance of surviving. And again, we want that house to survive without you. You know, one of the tips they're going to tell you, and if you've got a wooden fence that goes from, you know, the field to your house, somewhere in that wooden fence, you want an interruption so that the fence doesn't smolder and travel all the way up to your house and catch your house on fire, right? You don't want the fire to burn through a field. Nobody's there, nobody sees it, or they can't get resources to it because there's too much going on. And that fire just crawls through the fence until it gets to your home. So any kind of gate that you can put on there that could be fireproof, or any kind of interruptions in the surface, that'll help you. So you want to make that house defendable on its own. Okay, so tonight we're going to focus on what I love, and that's what you can do. All right. So sorry about these slides. I put these on so they're a little bit different format and probably spelled wrong, and they developed a little differently than the regular ones. But on the hot, windy, dry days, you know, you never want to use a power mower, because they could create sparks, whether it's from the hot equipment itself or chipping a rock or some kind of metal debris, starts the vegetation on fire. You don't want wood or other outdoor burning during this period, because all it takes is one ember from that to go into the fuel, and then we're off to the races with the fire. We've had several fires that have started from grease fires and barbecues, or barbecues that are in the wind event blow over. Same thing with discarded smoking materials. We've had a fire where the cigarette can or the butt can blew over and started a fire. So again, on these windy days, that's when you really have to be watching critically on what you're doing. You never want to pull your vehicle over in the grass. That can your catalytic converter could be hot, underside of your car hot, and catch any of the grass or vegetation on fire. And properly maintaining your vehicle to prevent materials from being spit out of your catalytic converter system. One thing people that have had these fires start, they noticed a diminishing power from their car, or the car sputtering, not running right. They wanted to stretch it out a little bit longer before they sold the car or fixed the car, whatever it was. And then they were driving for some distance, and it broke down, and then they saw behind them that they had started a fire, because when the catalytic converter disintegrated. It was shooting out hot embers, and I'll show you some pictures of what they look like in the next slide. Another thing that happens mostly on the interstates is the trucks and trailers carrying chains. If you let that chain drag on the ground, it could produce a spark. It could fly into the wildland. And there's interstate fires, highway fires that start with that. We've had the incidents of people doing target shooting during dry times in grass. We've had people doing the gender reveals and the pyrotechnic reveals, and all those types of things are human caused and 100% preventable, and we try to do that all the time. The other thing is, the reason we have that prevention inspections, or what we call the LE100s, is prevent house fires. If your house catches on fire, we don't want that to carry to the wildland. So the best way to prevent that is to be safe in your home, right? Have your smoke detectors, have extinguishers, have your wiring in good condition. Make sure everybody's safe with everything they're doing that produces heat and with fire. So, candles when the power goes out. During these red flag warnings, we might have power outages we'll talk about. So you want to make sure you use lighting. Don't ever use any kind of heating equipment indoors that's not properly ventilated, all those types of things. So you need to be safe in everything you do. This is Highway 1 in San Mateo County. That's not smoke that you see up on top, if that's coming through your picture good enough, but it's a foggy day, and a catalytic converter that failed spit out the slag into this field. You can see there's some burn marks there. This next picture, those are some remnants of the slag that went into the material. As you can see on the left-hand top, you can see the material around it is a little bit burnt. It didn't actually start the fire. It started a minimal spread, but other ones were in more receptive fuel beds, and they caught on fire. So when we're thinking about hardening on our home, we're thinking about that ember storm that's going to come, whether it's from heat that's lofting the embers to you or the wind that's blowing embers at you. We don't want those burning embers that are still hot to land in a receptive fuel bed and start the fire. So these are all things we can do to prevent that. So vegetation clearance, the top picture, you see a eucalyptus tree there that is clean underneath. It's got some succulents around it and some grass, but that's good separation that it won't climb as much. On the bottom left, that's maybe a year's worth of bark and debris falling off of it. And on the bottom right, that's an area that needs to be cleaned out. That's an area that the fire would carry through very easily and burn very hot. So it's incumbent on everybody to any properties they own to clear the vegetation as much as they can, limb up as much as they can so it doesn't climb. But the ground fuel is the most important thing, because that's where the fire usually carries the most. Okay, and when you're doing that, I should tell you to wear gloves and be careful, because there's probably gonna be rats and things living in here. But don't forget, if you have saddles in the trees, the embers aren't just gonna land on the ground, but they're gonna land up in those saddles. So you want to look up and clear out those materials as well. Okay, now we're into the set portion. Okay, we're going to prepare your home to have an evacuation plan. That means having a checklist and what you're going to take when you're evacuating, and be ready to implement your plan. Now, a lot of people say that they have a plan, but when's the last time you went through it, and when's the last time you practiced it? So it's a good review for everybody. Your evacuation plan, what should I wear? I'm not kidding about that. We'll talk about what you wear. Everyone needs to dress for success during an evacuation. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Your disaster kit supplies, no matter what the disaster is, you should have a go bag, whether it's an earthquake, tsunami, flood, for whatever reason you have to go, you need to have your kit ready. And it doesn't change much for a fire evacuation. Communications plan. Test the plan. Do this whole thing and run it through with your family, and do it in the dark, because most likely you're going to be without power when the time comes. And hopefully it's not at night, but it might be so dark you think it's night. Okay, when you're making your plan, there's 6 P's. So remember, you need to plan for people and pets. And the pets are a big deal. One thing you want to do is take care of the pets early. Make sure you have a carrier or a crate Make sure you get those pets early. You don't want to have to be looking for them at the end. They're going to sense you're amped up. They're going to sense something wrong is wrong. They're going to be spooked and they're going to be acting differently. So make sure you get your pets in the crates early, and make sure you do the same with the people. Everyone in your household and that you're caring for is going to be spooked and ready to go. Depending on the abilities of the people in your home and yourself, that's going to be more planning and more work for you when the time comes. You want to keep your papers, your phone numbers, your important documents, prescriptions, eyeglasses, all those things you want to replace, or you can't replace, but you can use. Anything that's irreplaceable, the memorabilia, anything you can pack, your personal computer and hard drives. It says plastic, which is your credit card, ATM cards, and cash. You want to make sure you grab your passport. Well, I want to have your vaccination card with you now, right? They need to add that one to it. One of our captains who works in Santa Cruz County, he had a home still has a home, but he lived in Paradise during the fires in Paradise. I had to cancel an overtime because he was working out here in San Mateo County at the time. Felt bad that we had training that got canceled, which canceled his opportunity to work. So he was home that day. The good thing is he was home, because if he wasn't, the fire would have burned through without him there. But fate had it that he was home the day before the fire started. So that morning, he heard what he thought was rain. He went outside and he saw not burning numbers, but ash and things coming from the sky. He kind of knew what was up and started packing up the cars. They packed up 2 cars with all their materials. Fire started getting closer, and he decided that he was going to park 1 car in the driveway, away from the house, away from any kind of vegetation, in the hopes that it would survive. He had his family, his pets, and the most important things with him, and they evacuated in 1 car because it was safer to stay together. Unfortunately, he lost the house and he lost the car, but everything important to him, he took with him, and he's back in place in Paradise again. So you want to make sure you keep what's most important to you, ready to go, and do your best to get out in a quick manner, because you don't have a lot of time when that evacuation order is given. Okay. Other places you can get information to get ready. There's several things online that can help you. This is the Ready, Set, Go, or www.ready.gov. You can get information there, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the CERT teams. You have the Santa Cruz County CERT.org that can get you in touch with the local CERT teams in Santa Cruz County. And here's some for South Skyline, La Honda, and Coastside by me. So you want to make sure you get in touch with them, because that's a big thing they focus on, is the getting in touch, knowing your neighbors, right? If you have to evacuate, it's good to know your neighbor, or get that plan together for your neighborhood, so you can all get together and reunite outside of the zone, and you can say, we checked on our neighbors and everyone's is out safely, and you can account for people remotely. So you want to build a network within your own neighborhoods, and certain teams are usually a good place to build that network. Okay, another thing here is building your communication plan. You want to have the out area contact person and where you would meet. You need to make the plan for whether you're at work or at home, which way the fire is coming from. You try to keep it simple, but there's a lot of variabilities, right? We don't know which way the fire is coming from, where you're going to be. If you have neighbors that can share information, that's great. And one of the tips I give to the CERT members is, whether the fire hits you or the evacuation hits you, if it's getting bad and ugly in the area you're at, it might be the best time to just protect your home with what you can to get it ready so you can leave, and go far away, as far away. If you know a hotel 2 hours away that has a place where it's got a pool and Wi-Fi, it's going to be much more comfortable there, because you're not going to be sleeping in the area that if you try to remain behind. And those hotels will fill up fast when the evacuation orders come. So be proactive and maybe get a couple nights away from home if you need it. Monitoring the weather. Chief Larkin is going to talk about the Zone Haven platform and evacuation warnings, but I'm going to teach you and tell you mostly about maintaining your situational awareness. If you've lived in this area, You know, the nights that we get coastal fog, you get that moisture that comes in that usually protects us from these wildland fires. Well, you also know the days when the wind has changed and it's dry. You know those days you wake up in the morning and there's no dew on the ground, everything's still dry. So those are the times you know the weather's changed. You don't need to look at the weatherman here telling you there's a red flag warning, but there's several broadcasts that go out. Anytime there's a weather warning, it's on television, it's on every social media. But those nights, and those days when there is a red flag warning, maintain your situational awareness. Keep your cell phones on loud. Several areas where there were evacuations, people found that they silenced their phone at night because they didn't want the unwanted text coming through and all those things. They had turned their phones off or down and did not hear the warnings. So especially on red flag warnings, you want to keep those phones on. And again, with the situational awareness, if you're in the area where the fire starts, there might not be time for the evacuation orders to get to you. The fire service might not even get to your area before the fire is on you. So, keep your situational awareness up. Yeah, I joked earlier, said we were going to talk about what you should wear. You're not going to look like this crew captain here. Well, maybe you will, but everything he's wearing there, we got to protect our hair. When we talk about the grass and the flashy fuels, the last thing you want is that heat burning your face or the back of your neck, or an ember landing in your hair, right? So you want to have a hat. If you can get goggles, put goggles on. You're protecting your nose and your mouth with a we all have probably masks around now with the pandemic. So again, just like you've learned with the pandemic, if you get an N95 or higher, it's harder to work because it's hard to breathe. So you have to judge that, whether it's just gonna be a scarf to filter out some of the smoke, but you will want something to protect your respiratory system from the smoke as much as you can. Your neck, your arms, your body, legs, right? You want to have shoes that you can move in, and you want long sleeve shirts even on a hot summer day. You want long pants even on a hot summer day when you're doing evacuation. You never want to wet any of the materials you put around your face. If you get a blast of heat, that wet material will turn to steam. If you inhale the steam, then you would have a respiratory problem because of steam burns. So you're better off to have a dry material that's going to shield you just from the radiant heat and move on. Now, a headlamp, that's something very good you want to have when you're doing your evacuation and planning and getting ready. If you're trying to pack things in the dark when the power goes out, you can only do so much holding your phone and using the flashlight on that. A headlamp goes everywhere your eyes go, and you don't have to worry about it. So one of those headlamps you can get from a local hardware store or any of the chain stores, they're gold for trying to free your hands and work. And drinking water. Have water in your car, have water in the house, because it's gonna be hot, you're gonna be panting, heart's gonna be racing, and you're gonna get dehydrated. So you want to make sure you have the endurance to get set and go. I talked a little bit about the PG&E power safety shutdowns. When PG&E built the lines out, there was nothing in place that said we were going to be shutting down power to these areas when the weather changed and the winds were blowing. So it's taken a while to put new technology and infrastructure in, and they've done a lot of improvements. But what they look for is, they get a report of severe weather it's forecasted. Then they put out the thing that a public safety power shutdown watch, meaning it's likely. The warning means that there's going to be the outage, and then it goes down to the power shutoff, and they can't turn the power back on. This is the frustrating part, that blue portion there. They can't turn the power back on until they've inspected every line on that system. So in the past, when they did it at the beginning, shutting off that one switch was easy. Trying to get the power back on to their entire line was more difficult. So they've done a lot of improvements. I'll show you the next slide here. This is a Canyon Road. The picture on the left, I guess they're both the same thing, but the picture on the left is a some switches. The picture on the right is a weather station that's taking wind measurements, and PG now can remotely shut down that canyon. So whether they're shutting off only that canyon, or if they shut off the grid for a long portion of line, they can keep that portion shut off, get the main line inspected, and canyon by canyon start to turn the power back on. So that's made for more efficient and quicker restoration of power for inspecting the lines. Again, the more remote you are and the more line there is between you and the major circuit, the longer it's going to take for them to get back on. But these are improvements that have been put in place throughout California through PG&E's sections. All right, so if the power is out in your area and you need to evacuate, hopefully you know how to open your garage door if your car is stuck behind that door. It's done by pulling the release cable on the pulley. It's a little red deal in the center. I think if my mouse does there, it's right there. You pull that down, it pulls the spring here, and then you can manually lift the door back up. Pull your car out, and then you want to put it back into place and shut the door because you don't want to leave that door open where embers can enter your garage. Okay, which one of these are you? I'm hoping everybody's that person that's backed in, because most first responders, police, fire, ambulances, the last thing we want to do when we get an emergency call is have to take the time to back out and then start going forward. So it's much safer when you come driving into an area. You've been driving for a while, you have more spatial awareness of your vehicle, so it's usually safer for you and less accidents if you back in at that time versus if you're going to back out when it's wet out, or if you've got a smoky environment, you don't have windshield wiper on the back of your vehicle as good as on the front, your visibility will be less. So you want to back in when it's safe to do so. I made the comment on the last webinar I did that I back into my garage. It's because I have a garage that doesn't have a person door to the house. And someone said, well, what about carbon monoxide poisoning? So definitely outside, and it's your decision on whether you want to back into your garage. Maybe on red flag warning days, you might want to back into your garage. But if you have a door that opens right up to your kitchen and you've got a car that's running rough, and you definitely don't want to idle it in the garage, but quick in and out with the door open to ventilate some of the exhaust. You'll have to make that decision on your own, but it's best to back in. Okay, so on the set portion, you got to be set for day or night. Know where your keys are. Don't misplace them. If you're that person that always loses your keys, then you know when you're in a panic, when you're gathering your pets, you're chasing down your kids, you're trying to find where you left that wedding picture and album, whatever it's going to be. You've got a million things going through your mind. You can smell the smoke. You can hear the fire engines. Somebody's telling you got to go right now. The last thing you want to do is have your keys locked in your car or lost somewhere in the house. So don't misplace your keys and plan for it to be done in the dark with no electricity. I couldn't really word this one right, but you cannot pack time. So you can't store time. The only place you can make time up is getting ready and in the set mode. Because when it's time to go, it's time to go. You can't phone a friend. You can't do anything. It's just you and the clock. So you need to get moving and get out. And once you're gone, you're going to be out for days, right? If you've got a large scale evacuation, law enforcement has to cordon off that area, and they can't just let everybody back in for this reason or that reason, because there's a huge area with a lot of residents, and everybody has a reason to get back in, and they just don't have the manpower and the resources to do that. We had hundreds of people who were trying to do it during the CZU roadblocks we had here in San Mateo County. I felt bad for one person who was on a work trip when the fire came in, and everything he needed for his employment and for his work was back at his home in the evacuated area, but they just couldn't let him in to do that until the roadblocks were dropped. So they have to deny entry to everybody, protect them, and you wouldn't want somebody being let back into your neighborhood unattended. So you got to think about the masses, and unfortunately, legitimate reason can't be accommodated all the time. Now we're in the go portion of it. This one gets me. This is the simplest step, go. Kind of threw me for a reason for a minute, but that'd be the end of this series if that was the truth. But it's the simplest step if you've done everything before it, right? You're Your home is ready to stand by itself, to stand the best chance because you've got good clearance between the vegetation. You've cleaned up the gutters and all the things they're going to teach you next in 2 weeks on the 24th. And now you're ready to go. So you can see this picture here. I talked about panic, right? That woman in this neighborhood looks like it's completely in a panic. That car's blocked in by another car on the roadway. Now they're going to play Jenga trying to get everybody in and out. There's cars, hatchbacks that are open. They're not backed in. So to avoid that panic look, prepare and be ready to go. By leaving early, not only does it help your stress level, not only is it going to make it a lot easier for you, it's going to help firefighters by clearing the roads, right? The fire departments and other emergency responders are going to be trying to get in while you're getting out. And we can't start perimeter defense. We can't start perimeter control. We can't start structure defense until everybody's out. So we need you to help us by getting out so we can get in there and do the work we need to do. The roads are going to be congested. We need to be able to move. And again, I can't stress enough that leaving early, you might think you're going too early, but you'll be so thankful you did, because if you wait for this moment, it's a heartache for everybody and it's hard on everybody. And some people, don't handle pressure as much as other people. So if you're emotional on a day-to-day level, just imagine what you're going to be here. And again, use that to prepare. Okay, going early, leaving early, especially if you have large animals, you want to get a hold of the large animal evacuation group in your area. You want to make sure that you have areas for them. And that's a whole specialty in itself. There's probably a large animal evac group with you. There's one in San Mateo County that's very active that moved hundreds of animals to the Cow Palace. And so you want to have that plan in place and get in touch with your local groups. Okay, evacuation step, what to do if trapped. Okay, so you didn't listen to me on the ready and the set portion, and now going is a problem. That whole thing about being the easiest step is no longer the truth. This picture here, with the embers coming across the roadway, that could be day or that could be night. We don't know, but that's good visibility that you might have. Okay, you can see there's a truck stuck in the roadway up ahead of them, whatever they were trying to do. But that's what you're going to face if you don't go early. So the longer you wait, the more obstacles you're going to face. The less options you're going to have, the higher risk, obviously. The mental stress, much more. The visibility you're going to go through. Traffic, the blockages, so routes that you would have taken early might have accidents on them, and now that route is not open to you. So you want to leave early. Okay, if you're not even in your car and you're trapped in your chateau, or if you're trapped, there's definitely no safe options, right? You want to shelter away from the outside walls. You want to put wet towels under the doors, right? Again, just like we said, when you don't want any wet materials by your face, this would only be down on the floor to keep the smoke from coming through the floor, keep it a little more tenable. You want to close all the doors in the house. You want to patrol for spot fires, right? You don't know where the fire is going to come into that house as the fire front's burning through. Have extinguishers so you can put anything out. Maybe one of the curtains you didn't take down starts to catch on fire. You can put out a small fire while it's small. Be aware above you and below you, right? The fire can get into your attic. The fire could get into the crawl space. If you have a wooden deck, the wooden deck's probably going to catch on fire and it's going to burn its way up to your house. So be aware of the vulnerabilities you have at your house. And then once if the fire front passes you, you want to check for embers and put out what you can and make it a savable space. Once the house does catch on fire, if it's, you have to get out. So whatever side, you're really out of options there. So whatever side there's the least amount of fuel, that's where you would want to go. With all those materials we had you dressed in, you would have to go outside, probably towards the front towards the roadway. but it depends on the winds, it depends on the fire activity. So you would want to keep your situational awareness up even when you're in that situation. Okay, if you're in your car, again, no safe options. You've got the long sleeves on, you got clothing on. Maybe you have a heavy wool blanket or something you can put over you so if there's heat coming. But if you're trapped in your car, there's large turnouts. Maybe you can protect yourself from the burning vegetation, cul-de-sacs, parking lots, green belts, golf courses, meadows, pastures, lawns, horse stables, areas where the animals have grazed, any place that's low on fuel that won't burn, and depending on the wind direction. You want to have your windows up. You want to put your air on recirculate. That's the one that's the little arrow that goes around in a circle in most cars. So you don't want to have the cabin air coming in from the outside. You want to just keep the air from within your car. You want to park away from any kind of green fuels that will burn. Park away from draws, right? So if you're at the top of a canyon and you can see the vegetation on both sides of the canyon going down, you're right in that chute. That's going to be a natural place where the fire is going to want to come up. So you don't want to park at the top of a draw of a canyon. Keep your hazard lights and all the lights on in your car. Protect yourself from smoke and heat with a blanket. You can get down low in the car. Again, you will not outrun the fire. So whatever you can do to shield yourself from the heat is what you need to do. So why Ready, Set, Go? It's a consistent message used by fire departments across the nation. The International Association of Fire Chiefs endorse it. And let's see if this works. Okay, it's gonna work. Here's the official Ready, Set, Go.
The massive wildfire exploded early Thursday morning, burning nearly 25,000 acres.
The fire has forced new evacuations this morning.
The fire moved up a ridgeline and then caught the Santa Ana winds perfectly.
In the summer of 2008, nearly 2,000 lightning-sparked wildfires scorched over 1 million acres across California, destroying hundreds of structures and impacting the lives in the surrounding communities forever.
I never thought it was going to happen to me. You always figure it's the other guy that's going to get their house burned.
And with California's Mediterranean climate, another fire siege of that magnitude is just a matter of time. I'm CAL FIRE's Daniel Berlant. Devastating wildfires occur every year across the state, putting lives, property, and the state's natural resources at a constant threat. In California, wildfires aren't a question of if, but only a question of when. If you choose to live near a natural area of the state, you are at risk for wildfires, and it's your responsibility to prepare yourself, your family, and your home. And that preparation starts with 3 simple steps. Ready, set, go. Getting ready before wildfire happens is a vital first step in protecting yourself and your property. Beginning in the spring months, well before the peak of fire season, you should carefully assess your property and start taking steps to prepare for the hotter months to come.
As firefighters are responding to fires throughout California, one of the most important things they can look for is defensible space.
Defensible space is the required 100 feet between your property and the surrounding wildland area. Defensible space has consistently been shown to be the best, most practical first line of defense for your home against wildfires. Adequate defensible space provides a barrier to slow, or in some cases even halt, the progress of fire that would otherwise engulf your property. It also helps ensure the safety of firefighters while they defend your home.
I'm going to have to go to homes that provide some type of clearance for my firefighters. I cannot go to a home that has brush and everything growing right up to it. I've got to pick a home where I can safely make a stand, and if we get stuck there, that we can survive it as well.
When the destructive lightning siege fires burned throughout California in 2008, defensible space once again proved to be a key element around the homes that survived, while many homes without adequate clearance were not as fortunate. But defensible space isn't the only factor in protecting your property. Another critical step is hardening your home. During a wildfire, loose flying embers can find weak points on the outside of your home. Hardening your home means reinforcing these vulnerabilities. CAL FIRE Battalion Chief Nick Schuler demonstrates some of the components of a well-defended home.
As you see here, they have an excellent green belt around their home. All of their trees are limbed up, so there's no dead and dying vegetation around their home. And as you can see, as we walk along, all the leaf litter's been picked up, and we move straight into the fire-resistant construction. They have the stucco siding, they have the enclosed eaves, and the composite roof, all proactive steps that this homeowner's taken to reduce fire potential.
Now that you have your home ready for a wildfire, it's time to get set by preparing your most valuable assets, your life and the lives of your family. You should start by creating a wildfire action plan. A wildfire action plan gives you and your family a chance to plan out and write down important information and special preparations that you'll need to take as a wildfire approaches.
As part of your wildfire action plan, you want to sit down with your family and talk about things like escape routes, what roads are you going to take when you leave the house, and the other thing is where are you going to go. You want to have a meeting location.
Your family's plan will be unique depending on your circumstances, so it's vital that you practice and update it regularly to keep everybody prepared. It's also important to plan which belongings in your house you'll need to take with you in case of evacuation if you have time.
Prepare what you're going to take with you when you leave. There's nothing worse than packing up to leave and you realize you didn't take anything that you really wanted to. You took stuff that just was the first thing you saw.
Wildfires can move quickly and can change direction into a surrounding community without warning. With the assurance that your home is now well defended and your family's wildfire action plan in place, when a wildfire approaches, you're now ready to go. During a wildfire, emergency personnel may not be able to warn everybody, so it's up to you to take the initiative to stay informed by listening to the TV or radio for announcements. If an evacuation is imminent, it's time to set your wildfire action plan into motion. Don't wait to be ordered to leave your residence, just go, and go early. By leaving early, you give your family the best chance of surviving a wildfire.
Follow the directions of fire and law enforcement, and if you feel threatened, you need to go ahead and get out of that home. We have a lot of systems in place to notify you of that, but you have to be willing to get out and get out early.
Although wildfires can be unpredictable, destructive, and deadly, they're an undeniable part of California's wildland. Wildfire is coming, and it's the steps you take now that will ensure you, your family, and your home have a fighting chance when it happens. For more information on how to prepare for wildfires and for a wildfire action plan checklist, visit readyforwildfire.org.
I always have a hard time ending the video, but that website, readyforwildfire.org, has lots of information, a lot of things we covered tonight, and you'll cover in 2 weeks from now on the 24th. So that's the portion of that I'm taking care of. Unit Chief Ian Larkin is going to cover the Zone Haven on the go portion of it. So I'll stop sharing my screen as soon as I find that. There it is. Now we're back.
All right, let me get my side going here. So I think you all should be able to see a single slide with the evacuation. Dave, you seeing that?
Yeah, I just muted myself. Let's go.
Okay, perfect. All right, so good evening. My name is Ian Larkin. I'm the unit chief here in the San Mateo Santa Cruz unit. And as Chief Armstrong mentioned, I have been working pretty diligently to bring a new evacuation management platform to both San Mateo and Santa Cruz County over the last couple of years. And we have embarked in the agreement with a company called Zone Haven to bring this new evacuation management platform to you, the citizens, to hope to have better information for you on what is happening during a fire or any other type of emergency that may require an evacuation. So what we're going to cover tonight is evacuation notification systems. We're going to cover Zone Haven. I'm going to talk a little bit about Code Red, which is the Santa Cruz County reverse 911 system, as well as just briefly on the San Mateo County alerts or SMC alerts. We're also going to talk a little bit about wireless emergency alerts, and then also the Alert Wildfire Camera, a website where you can actually see and view cameras that would provide vital information in the event of a wildland fire. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the emergency alert, wireless emergency alert system, which is called WIA. So a WIA is a public safety system that allows customers who own compatible mobile devices to receive geographically targeted information like a text message, alerting them to imminent threats to the safety in the area that you're physically in. So this basically uses cell towers and things in that general area to be able to send out this alert to tell you, hey, something's wrong, you need to be aware of it, and you may need to leave the area that you're in. This is a kind of a last resort, or in the instance of where people may not have good communication, would be something that would be used to alert those folks that may live in areas that have poor or no communication in the wildland areas of a community. This is a system that the government authority having jurisdiction may send alerts regarding public safety emergencies, such as severe weather, a missing child, or if you need to evacuate. So for some examples, in the wintertime, you may, if you live in a flood-prone area, you may get flash flood warnings from the National Weather Service. Those are coming over that wireless emergency alert. Or if you're getting an amber alert that you may receive where you're on the highway where your phone makes a really obnoxious noise, those are those WIA alerts that you're getting. And then you receive these messages on mobile devices based on the location or area that you're in, as I stated earlier. These alerts will be received by basically any WIA capable device. Pretty much if you have a modern cell phone or a smartphone, you should be able to receive these devices, but it's always good to check with your wireless carrier to make sure that that service is included when you purchase that phone. But for the most part, everybody should be able to receive those, but it's always good to just double check. There's no need to sign up for these alerts. They're automatically available, it's free, and it's a nationwide service. So no matter where you're at in the nation or whatever city you're in, if they send out a WIA alert, you should receive it if your device is capable of it. And then there's a website you can go to get some additional information on the WIA alerts, and it's basically the FCC site. And there's an address here in the slide. I won't read it out for you, but I'll give you a second if you want to take a snapshot of that or a picture. And this also will be available in the presentation that you can view on YouTube as well. So let's talk a little bit, something near and dear to my heart is Zone Haven. So Zone Haven is basically an evacuation management platform that is used to quickly communicate to the public about emergency status of the local area. Fortunately, during the CZU Lightning Complex, we didn't quite have the system up and running, but we were able to talk with Zone Haven, and they immediately jumped into action and brought the system up live. And we were able to use this during the CZU Lightning Complex to help us manage the evacuations of over 77,000 people in the two counties. San Mateo and Santa Cruz counties are basically broken into hundreds of different zones. And each of these zones are unique. They have a unique naming convention, which we'll cover a little bit later. And it's really important to know your zone. We've taken some really precise metrics to build these zones and make sure that they work for the community, and then they work for the both law enforcement and fire departments. A couple different things. Evacuation orders involve many different agencies, and it usually spans over multiple jurisdictions. Down to the bare basics of all this, law enforcement has the specific authority to initiate and order evacuations, but in a collaborative effort, the fire department works hand in hand and makes a lot of the recommendations that law enforcement agencies will enact in those zones. What Zone Haven does is Zone Haven allows us to work on the same platform at the same time to make sure these evacuations are coordinated between the emergency crews and the public. It's really allowed us to have that collaboration where we're not sitting down on the hood of a truck drawing on maps of where we're going to evacuate. It's already pre-designated. And when we talk about planning, this is what we have done as emergency services providers, is we have put a plan in place that we are practicing and working very diligently to make sure that in the event that we ever had to order these evacuations, that we're ready to go. Each of these zones include data about those specific communities. So as you learn to know your zone, you'll be able to click on that zone and it will bring up specific data about that community or that specific zone and the status of that zone. So the first step in our preparation, in order to understand whether your area is under evacuation warning or an order, you need to know your zone's name. So as I said, each of these zones have a unique naming convention. So the fire service kind of developed these zones. So we're utilizing all of the fire agencies or county designator. So for example, in San Mateo County, it may be SMC with a dash and then an E and then a series of numbers and then potentially another letter behind that. So it's really important to know what that zone is. So authorities use the zone naming convention in all of our media releases and all of our social media posts. So whenever we do an evacuation, that's how we're going to tell people what zone is being evacuated. We're going to use that specific naming convention to notify residents which are under an evacuation warning or an order. And we'll talk a little bit more precisely about what the order and understanding how to understand what a warning is versus an order. You can find your zone name at this website. It's https://community.zonehaven.com. And I'm going to try something here real quick. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to click on this screen. I'm not going to share my screen again. Okay, so you should see a blue screen here, and basically this blue screen is where you can learn to know your zone. Basically, if you come down here where my cursor is and it says find your zone, you can click on that.
It's up, Chief.
What's that?
Sorry about that. It doesn't look like it's up.
It didn't come up?
No.
Let me double check here. It's blue on my side, so. Okay, how about now?
Now you're looking good.
All right, sorry about that. Technology, it doesn't matter how much you use it, it always gives you a problem. So you go down here to this area where it says find your zone now, and you can click on this, and it's going to start the Zone Haven application. And as you can see here, I'm just going to move the map around a little bit here. You can see a bunch of these zones that have these little naming conventions in here and stuff. It's not really important to know that because you can just type in your address. So I'm just going to type in the current address that I'm located at right now. I can spell, it would help. Got the big 9 in there. So this is basically our CAL FIRE headquarters, and you can see it automatically takes me to that zone. I can see here that that zone name is FEL-E003B. And the reason it's got so many numbers and letters in there is this is also part of the debris flow after the fire. So it's a split zone. So it's part of zone 3, but it has a split in it. That's why it gets that alpha character at the end. But so you can click down here on the police information and fire information. It'll tell you who the authority that is in that jurisdiction. And then it'll give you some additional information. So what I'm going to do though is I'm going to click on the little highlighted area here. And so this is going to give me some additional information about that zone. So as you can see, that zone is FEL-E003C, as in Charlie. and it tells you a little bit more information about it. So that zone is currently under an advisory, and that advisory is because there's a debris flow information. So if I click on that debris flow information, it'll take me to another site, takes me to the County of Santa Cruz's website that talks about debris flow and the hazards associated. So that's that information sheet that you'll see when you go in there. So it's easy enough to go up and click on that search button, type in your address, and it should take you to the zone that you are. You can also do a little bit of searching here related to fires, and it'll give you some information specifically to fire. So I'm just going to click on the first one I see here. It's the Freedom Fire that occurred back in January of this year. And that fire occurred down in the Watsonville area. And if I click on that fire, it's going to give me a little bit of information on what that fire. So a little bit of fire history goes along with this evacuation management plan. Let me stop sharing here and I'll try to get back to regular screen. All right. Okay, we should be back to the step one presentation. Or preparation. So that's the Zone Haven platform. So what I can say is once you've found your zone, it's really important that you remember that. So it's important to write that down and post it somewhere so it's easily accessible to you. Put it in your notes in your phone or just commit it to memory. It's pretty easy to remember the three-letter identifier and what zone you're in. And each of those are going to be unique to the fire agency that provides you fire protection. So for example, in Santa Cruz County, if you are in the Boulder Creek Fire Protection District, that zone would start out with BOU because that's Boulder Creek Fire Protection District's three-letter identifier for that fire agency. And then each of us that are responsible for fire protection have an agency with that three-letter identifier. So let's go to the next part. So as I said, know your zone. I'll leave this up for just a second. These are a couple different websites where you can actually go. And the one we were just at was the community.zonehaven. And the My Zone is the one you can go and get more information about the entire platform and how it works and operates in more detail. So in the event of a wildfire or an emergency situation, our law enforcement partners and our fire agencies issue evacuation warnings or orders that are needed for an impacted area. These notices are used for a zone specific to that evacuation status. So as I showed earlier, if you click on that zone, it'll highlight it, it'll bring up that information card, and then it'll give you that status. The status is really the key one to narrow into, and then also the reason for what the evacuation was being ordered or the warning was being ordered for. Each of the zones, once the status is changed, it will change color. So those colors are important, and I'm going to cover those in a slide here in a minute. But when you look at that zone, it's going to either be red, yellow, blue, or there's some specific ones that represent other details such as green for repopulation after an evacuation. So let me go to the next slide here and we'll talk a little bit more in depth. So if the zone is red in color, it's going to be under an evacuation order. That basically means that all residents need to evacuate immediately and seek shelter outside of that danger zone. If the zone is yellow, that means that an evacuation warning has been issued and you need to take caution that there's potential threat to life and property. And residents should be packing up essential documents and belongings and be prepared to evacuate the area at a moment's notice. Now, when you get to the blue, it's a little less serious, but it's still pretty serious because it's an advisory and it's basically a precautionary notice that the intent to give residents time to prepare for a possible evacuation. So this is really the time you need to be looking at that large animal situation. If you've got trailers, getting hooked up to trucks, getting ready to make that move and keeping very informed on what the fire is doing so that you can be out in front of that and be prepared. When you see green, that's basically our notice with law enforcement and all of our other cooperating partners. They all clear to repopulate. That means that it's safe to return to your home. But be aware of your surroundings when you do return home. Make sure you you use your returning home checklist to make sure everything's safe. If a zone is changed purple or magenta, I guess that's more the proper color, that's a shelter in place. This basically means that you need to find a safe location indoors and be prepared to be self-sustained until further notice, or you're contacted by emergency personnel for additional direction. And then if you just have a white clear color, or it's just the natural color of the zone, then it's back in a normal status and there's no need to have any concerns. So step 2 in our preparation is to sign up for your evacuation alerts for yourself and your loved ones. These are some pretty easy processes for you to conduct. Some of the best ways to stay informed about wildfires during the summertime months or any time of the year about emergency incidents is you can go to the CAL FIRE incident page, which is the www.calfire.ca.gov/incidents. And that's where you'll find up-to-date information on incidents that are occurring. And then you can also go to our CAL FIRE Twitter page. And more importantly, for the local area in San Mateo or Santa Cruz County, you can go to our Twitter page, which is www.twitter.com/CalFireCZU. And that's where you're going to find reports on our local incidents that are occurring in the unit. As far as signing up for different types of alerts, in Santa Cruz County, it's very, very important that you register for Code Red to receive reverse 911 notifications and other important information that may be coming out based on those evacuation or reverse 911 type alerts that you can get. And you can go to www.scr911.org, and that'll take you to the Santa Cruz Regional 911 Dispatch Center webpage. And I'll show you just in a minute that there's a specific couple buttons you can push to register for Code Red. And in San Mateo County, I know we've talked about this in our other previous messages, but just in case there's folks from San Mateo County on the call tonight, San Mateo County utilizes SMC Alert to notify of incidents or conditions in the areas that you may live in. And you can go to that website at http://hsd.smcsheriff.com/SMC Alert. And that'll give you information on how to register for all those alerts on both of those platforms. So here is a incident summary sheet. So these are available. This is what you're probably going to see when you go to that CAL FIRE website. It's going to give you incident information or facts. It's going to give you the current situation. And then it's going to talk about evacuation warnings and some other evacuation details. So these are just things for you to stay informed on so you can stay up to date on the current situation if you get evacuated. So step 3 in our preparation is right now is preparing, right? That's what you're here for tonight, is starting to prepare now. You got to be forward thinking and be ready. This year could be a banner year again with our low fuel moistures and lack of precipitation. So getting that preparation done early is key to being successful. The likelihood that your family will survive an emergency situation like a wildfire or earthquake depends on largely on you and your family taking the time to put a plan together in those things that Chief Cosgrave spoke about, the ready, set, right? Now it's all about exercising that plan. So you got to have the tools and the plan in place prior to the emergency occurring. But one of the key elements here is once you have that plan and those tools in place, is to exercise that and try to exercise it frequently, not just once a year. You should be doing it 2-3 times a year, just so everybody is familiar with it and is ready to go, especially as we're moving into our fire season. It's more important now than ever to practice that plan. If you don't have the plan, is to put it together and then practice it. as part of that plan is making sure that you know your evacuation route. Most areas, unless you live on a one-way road, have multiple ways in and out of the community. If you don't, you do live on a one-way road, that feeder road may have multiple ways in and out. So knowing how to get in and out of your communities now is important before that emergency occurs. So when you do get notified, you can make a decision on what's going to be the safest route out of it. Utilize resources like our Zone Haven for information, Code Red, and SMC alerts to be notified and stay ahead of that curve because things can progress very quickly as we saw last year with the CZU line. So here's a little bit about Code Red notifications or alerts. Santa Cruz County uses Code Red. It is our reverse 911 system here in the county. It's a mass notification system that allows public safety agencies within Santa Cruz County to alert you, the public, of any kind of emergency that could put you in harm's way. To receive these messages within Santa Cruz County, you need to register your cellular phone or your landline phone numbers to receive these alerts. To receive these alerts. This is an opt-in system, so you have to register to receive these. You can also register landlines and also locations of not only your home, but your work, or say your child's preschool, or even a relative's residence that you want to be kept informed on if events occur in that geographical area. You can also download the Code Red application from your favorite app store. Both Android and Apple platforms have them. The nice part about the Code Red system, if you are traveling in areas of the state or the country that use Code Red, and you have the application in the notification mode, it will alert you when you're in those geographical areas. When a notification is about potential safety hazards or concern is issued, you'll receive a message, either a voice or a text communication, depending on what you signed up for when you registered your device. So I would recommend that you proactively go to that website if you already haven't done it and register for Code Red if you live in Santa Cruz County. I know there was a question earlier in the chat that I tried to answer. If you live on a border, either in San Mateo to the Santa Cruz border or the Santa Clara County borders, it's good to make sure that you registered for all these alerts so that you can stay prepared, because the fire doesn't necessarily have to be in our county to put you in harm's way. The other thing is with Code Red, you have unlimited number of devices that you can register. So it's really important that you get whatever devices are you want registered and be ready for that alert if it does need to come. And once again, it does not work if you do not register. Like I said, it is an opt-in system. So this is the homepage of the Santa Cruz County Regional 911 Dispatch Center's website. As you can see, there's the link to the website there, but here are the two buttons you can push. If you just push this top button that says sign up for Reverse 911, that'll take you to the registration, or you can go down to this red circled area down here and click on Code Red, and that will take you to the registration page. So for San Mateo County SMC alerts, it's a mass notification system that allows safety agencies in San Mateo County to alert you. This is an Everbridge system is the host of the alerting system. To receive those messages focused on specific neighborhoods in San Mateo County, you have to register, or you can register up to 5 addresses in the alert system, such as your home, work, or child, or a relative's residence. But you can only, this is limited up to 5 addresses. So unlike Code Red where it has unlimited, this does have some little bit of restriction to it. When notifications of potential hazards or concerns, you'll receive a message, either a voice or a text, through common methods of communication that you registered for on that site. And then once again, this is an opt-in system, and if you don't register for it, it does not work. So this is the page. If you go to SMC Alert, or you go to follow that link that I stated earlier, this is where it's going to take you. As you can see, there's a registration over in the far corner to register for the SMC Alerts. So let's talk a little bit about alert wildfire cameras. So the alert wildfire cameras are a series of cameras that are part of a consortium of 3 universities that have linked through a network these alert verification cameras. University of Nevada at Reno, University of San Diego, and the University of Oregon are the 3 universities that have put this series of cameras together throughout the Western United States to help us with validating wildland fire starts and give us information in our toolboxes so that we can validate where a fire may be and what the potential it is to have and where it's going to move to. These consist of cameras positioned throughout the state, as I said. Typically, they're placed on high vantage points or areas that can see into drainages and things like that so that we can get good vantages. These are used to locate those new fires and then monitor that activity as it goes. I'm going to try and do one thing here real quick. I'm going to stop sharing for just a second. Bear with me 1 second. Then I'm going to click on this link. And I'm going to try to share my screen again. You can see what that looks like. All right, do you see the Alert Wildfire webpage?
Yes.
Okay, so perfect. So this is the Alert Wildfire webpage. And if you zoom out, I'll get it centered here so you can see it a little bit better. Sorry about that. As you can see, California has quite a few cameras, so I'm going to zoom in here just lightly. I'm going to come into Santa Cruz County or San Mateo. So we are located in the South and East Bay platform. So if you click on the South and East Bay platform, it will bring up a list of cameras. And currently, this camera, let me move up. This is looking at, this is the camera in Santa Clara. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click on the camera in Bonnie Doon. And when you click on that camera, this is the public site that you all can look at. This is the view that was taken at 7:19 this evening. So depending on where that camera is pointed, some folks do have control of these cameras and can move them so that we can locate fires. But you'll be able to see those vantage points. And now I'm just going to click on another camera here. See what's going on. This is a camera up on Mount Pulaski. So this is a camera looking towards the south off of Mount Pulaski. So I won't spend much more time on that, but I just wanted to show you that if you go to www.alertwildfire.org /, that'll take you to this site where you can actually see these cameras and kind of have your own vantage point of what that looks like. So let's see here. I'm going to start sharing again. Okay, I think I'm good to go. Dave, are you seeing that?
Yep, your PowerPoint's back up.
Okay, perfect. So Alert Wildfires cameras are just another tool that you have available to you as a citizen to be able to look and see for your own eyes of what may be occurring in a geographical area near you. And those cameras are positioned throughout the region. We have several in San Mateo County and several in Santa Cruz County. And each day we're trying to get more and more of these cameras to help us with validation and protecting you, the citizens. Okay, so that concludes my portion of the presentation. And we are going to have some question and answer now. So I will turn it back over to Chief Armstrong. I'm going to stop sharing the screen.
Yeah, and Chief Cosgrave, did you have anything else before we moved on to the last few minutes of questions and answers?
Just one of the questions that came up on Zonehaven in the previous webinar. When you put your address in, don't be concerned when it doesn't put the little icon right on your residence. It puts it in the zone. doesn't necessarily put it on your street at your address.
Yeah. And then on the Zone Haven portion, or on things as a whole, sorry folks, I've been trying to kind of answer some of the questions as we went. And so I'll rapid fire kind of recap some of those, and then we'll see if anybody else has any live questions that we can get to. So handful of things came up. Sorry if I can get back to them. Lizanne just had a question about alert wildfire cameras, if any new ones were coming online in Santa Cruz County this year, and I kind of answered back to that. There are a couple. Chief Larkin just showed the Bonnie Doon and Mount Pulaski ones, and we do have several others that are in the works, just kind of working through the process with alert wildfire. So we hope to have, I believe, 4 more is the current that we're working on, and the sooner we can get those, the better, as we in our command center have control of those. So those will be great tools to have. We answered a couple questions about as far as notifications go. And yeah, if you're on a border or like a tweener zone, yeah, I'd put in for whatever's available to you, because it'll give you that much more. SMC Alerts does a phenomenal job of getting information out. So if you're right on the edge, can't hurt to have SMC Alerts. You might get more notifications than you hope to, but I'd rather have more than not enough. And then the question just came up about the loud fire sirens, similar to the one in Felton. And Chief and I were literally just having this conversation with some folks today. And unfortunately, the preliminary information that we have on those so far is that our geography doesn't blend very well in the Santa Cruz Mountains, just due to the amount of vegetation that we have, the the amount of drainages and everything. You would need a ton of them to truly be effective. And then we start to run into, well, where do you put them? And the landowner probably isn't going to be too happy to hear that thing exercised once a week and so forth. So it's an option. We definitely aren't saying no, but it's just not something that we've chosen to move forward with just yet. And then we did have one come through. I know there's not a real good mechanism. I'm focusing on the questions asked through Zoom right now. We are streaming this live on Facebook as well. And there was a question about if we were going to have more vehicles or planes this year. The answer is kind of yes and no. So CAL FIRE is, it's about 1% of the statewide budget total. And we have several things in process that have been going on for several years. One of those is the replacement of our rotary wing aircraft or helicopter fleet, replacing the old Hueys that carried about 350 gallons of water with basically the civilian version of Blackhawks that carry 1,000 gallons of water. So several of those are already in service, and we continue to replace more of those. They're also working on continuing a program to bring C-130s that were surplused from the U.S. Coast Guard into the CAL FIRE air fleet. That'll drop a significant amount larger retardant. Unfortunately, those are still another year or 2 off from full development. So working on those, and we continue to contract exclusive use contracts with additional rotary wing and fixed wing aircraft from private vendors during our peak fire season. But other than those things that we're already moving forward, we won't see any additional permanent funding for rotary or fixed wing aircraft this year. And I think that's pretty much it that wasn't left hanging so far. We do have just 4 or 5 minutes left. If anybody else has any live questions that they'd like to place in the chat on our Zoom.
Or can they use the raise the hand function?
I'll just double back to my presentation real quick and just say that everything I presented about getting ready is all incumbent on the individual to do. It's you can watch 1,000 webinars, but unless you take action, nothing will be done when the time comes. So people need to be proactive and do what they can to help their situations.
I'll just dovetail into Chief Cosgrave's comment. The know your zone is important. This is going to be the method that we use moving forward. So the sooner you know your zone, what I will tell you, if you do have an alpha character at the end of your zone, because it's a split zone, the importance is to remember that you're in a alpha zone. The last character doesn't really play a part unless you have a split zone due to some other circumstance. So, but know your zone, because that's what we're going to be putting out a press release or notifying the public through reverse line.
All right, so yeah, I haven't seen anything else come through. Let's see here. Chief, I'll throw this one to you. Are there any, or will there be any legal regulations to incentivize homeowners to clean up their properties?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
Sorry about that. I'm reading off another device here. Are there or will there be any legal regulations to incentivize homeowners to clean up their properties?
So we do have our public resources code where we go out and do our A100 inspections. And there's a process where we move forward, and it could go to citation as far as an incentive or anything of that nature. We're not really at the position to offer that or move that forward. We just tried to get compliance from the property owner. And obviously with this last year, we saw the devastation that can occur. You know, working with that property owner to try to gain compliance is our number one factor. And, you know, as time moves forward and if more monies become available through grants and things like that, communities, we would be more than happy to sit down and have a conversation and find out ways to work with you, the property owners in your community, to potentially enter into an agreement to make some type of fuel reduction program occur in your community.
And then, Chief, would you mind covering Santa Clara County again? Is it SCC alerts? Is that what they can Google for the Santa Clara folks?
No, it's actually alerts SCC, or I'm sorry, alert SCC. So if you Google alert SCC, it will take you to their site, and then you can click on the registration. It's operated under the Office of Emergency Services for Santa Clara County.
All right, thank you for that one. And then just saw another question come through on our Zoom side from Margaret. We live in Lompico and there's only one way in or out. Is there anything special we should know to do? And Margaret, I think the best thing for us, the best advice we can give is get out early. I mean, especially we're sensitive to you folks that live out there in Lompico and Zayante, and yeah, we know it's limited one way in and out. We discussed your area in great detail, and man, if there's anybody on this presentation that or viewing tonight that we would like to reach on this as far as having things set early and not needing to waste time when the time comes, it's folks in situations like yourself. So please be prepared. Have those go bags, have where you're going to go, have your plan and practice it. And, if we issue warnings, there's nothing to say that you have to wait until it comes to be in order. So when those warnings come out, that's a good time to start moving. And then it looks like we aren't seeing anything else come through, and our time is up for the evening. So we do thank you all for coming and participating tonight, getting this information. We will be having another presentation 2 weeks from tonight on the 24th on home hardening and defensible space, steps you guys can take to make your home more resilient in the case of a fire in the area. So we hope that you can join us then. We'll be getting that out through our Nextdoor, Twitter, Facebook, and all those avenues as soon as we can. And on that, follow us on Twitter. That's a great way for us to get out information as incidents are happening. It's just more situational awareness. That's probably our quickest way that we push out when there's new fires and updates to fires and so forth in the area. So with that, again, thank you all for coming on and have a great evening. Be safe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.